This is you staying home this winter.
I should have worn long johns under my long johns.
This is you on a Sunwing winter getaway.
Ooh, I should have worn shorter shorts. It's so hot here. I'm sweating tears of joy.
With big savings up to $3,000 per couple on winter getaways, you get more under our wing. Sunwing Cyber Week sale is on now until December 4th. So contact your travel agent or visit sunwing.ca.
Discover hockey in a fantastical new way. Sportsnet presents Hockeyland, an adventure game in Minecraft. Download it at Sportsnet.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. Please rate and review the show. I'm your host, William Lou. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. Alex, how you feeling after that terrible performance by the Raptors last night? How you feeling?
Yeah, it was a big waste of time. You know, nice little fourth quarter comeback. And then they were down like, what, 11? And then Zion blocked Pascal's shot, went in for that, what was it, double pump dunk?
I mean, yeah, Zion broke free from a double team above the three-point line from OG and Pascal.
Yeah, saw Mr. Hustle, Wancho at the basket.
Drove baseline, saw Wancho, took off, and then went up and under and still dunked it with two hands, man. That guy is special.
And then on the next play, he basically just shoved Chris out of the way, like into probably where Matt Devlin was.
Yo.
And just went in and scored again, and that really just wrapped it up. I mean, Zion was a beast. I mean, I think we've known this from the glimpses of seeing Zion, but the performance last night, like 33 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. Like, he was getting the free throw line at will. He was 12 of 15 from the field. Like, the Raptors just had no answers for him. Although the Raptors also didn't show up, but that's, the other side of the equation.
I always think about it in terms of, like, which stars in this league are able to still perform against the Raptors, just because the Raptors put so much of a focus on stopping star players. Obviously, one of the best individual defenders in the league in OG Anunoby. And by the way, that was a tough hit for OG's defensive case, right? Because Zion kind of just discarded him easily.
Yeah, we can just skip this one. It's fine.
Yeah,
this is how propaganda works, right?
Right. You're right.
You pick and choose. Yeah.
You know what?
You guys and oh my God, you guys and all your propaganda accounts. That's how it works.
Yeah, fair enough. So this game didn't happen. But, like, Zion delivered that kind of performance that you've seen in terms of the level of dominance to, like, what Luka has done to the Raptors over the years. Not the most recent performance, which is why that one was such a great case for OG. But, like, we've rarely seen star players dominate the Raptors. What you see sometimes is, like, supporting players go off for career highs sometimes, because the Raptors obviously send so much of an attention towards one guy. So it might be hard for a KD to go off against the Raptors, but it might not be hard for, Nick Claxton or like a Joe.
Well, New Orleans had both.
I was going to say Joe House again.
Joe House.
I just want to call him Joe House.
But first, Pearl Jam. Happy Thursday. Thursday's a new Friday, since I won't be on air tomorrow.
Why not?
Zion Well, the Pelicans had both. Zion had his superstar performance.
Yes.
And, guys like a Dyson Daniels had a near triple-double.
Yeah.
So they had the best of both worlds yesterday. But I get what you're saying about Zion. Like, that was
wow.
A superstar performance. I don't even know how to, put Zion in the context of, all the other stars in the league. Because we've seen glimpses of him. He obviously didn't play last year, but the year before he was really impressive. And then you come off a performance like this, and I'm like, wow, this is like a top 10 player right here.
He's super unique, right? Because, there's just nobody else in the league remotely like him, right? He's one of those guys that's like Embiid is really unique in that sense because nobody's that big and that skilled and that willing to flop. I think Giannis is elite, right? And he's really unique just based on how hard he plays the game. And Zion is also the same way. Even though he's smaller, but, it's so hard to double team this guy. The fact that, you look at that matchup against OG, right? Whenever OG goes into a matchup and he's guarding a wing player, he's got the size advantage. He's so strong, he's able to dictate sort of where guys are going and stuff like that just because of how much he's able to muscle them. Guys can't go through him and stuff like that. He's just so strong. And then sometimes the Raptors put him on centers, and at least in that case, he has the quickness advantage, right? A lot of times, for example, you see the Raptors play the Denver Nuggets, and OG is the one assigned to guarding Nikola Jokic. And what does he do in that matchup? Well, obviously, Jokic is going to punish him in the post, but what OG does is sort of he uses his quickness, fronts the post, jumps passing lanes, and that's how he has a lot of steals in these games against teams where he's guarding the center. So he's able to either use strength or his quickness, ideally both. He had neither advantage last night. Zion literally beat him for both things. And I think for OG, it was like, what do I even do?
Yeah,
right? It's a really strange matchup to even learn how to guard because he's not only super strong, but he's super slippery and he makes the right pass most of the time.
Yeah. No, the physical force and the athleticism. It's really rare to see a player like that. Honestly, it reminds me of young Shaq. I know I'm just, talking to myself here.
Right.
By the way, I've just been laughing the first 5 minutes of the show.
Why?
Because I listened to the React Pod of you last night at 3 times speed. Because it's one of those games where I just need to zoom through, make sure what you said. What did you say? Gary was really good responding in terms of coming off the bench. He's a great professional. That's what I heard from you. So now that I'm listening to you live in studio, you're talking really slow, even though you're just talking at a normal pace.
I didn't even know 3 times speed was even an option.
No, it's messing me up because you keep talking. I'm like, yo, can you please talk faster? But I guess this is my fault. Anyways, I don't think we're here to talk about Zion.
He was the reason to watch the game last night. Genuinely, he was amazing.
126-108 was the final score. Raptors now 11-10 on the season, 3-8 on the road now, and 21 games into the season, they haven't had a winning streak or losing streak longer than 2 games this season. So yesterday, I think it was their 4th chance to go on a 3-game win streak.
Okay.
And they've been 0-4 in those games. So it's just been a very up and down season. And I was looking at the road record too. They've lost a lot of these road games by double digits.
Yeah.
7 of their last 8 losses have been by double digits. And there's been a couple blowouts in there. Obviously yesterday, I think people remember the OKC game when they lost by 19. And there's been a few others too, even in Brooklyn. I mean, that was a home game too, but they've lost a lot of games by double digits this season, which, I think is a troublesome sign. And I know we can parse through all the injuries that they've had in the different rosters, but I just feel like the 3-8 record right now on the road is very disappointing.
Yeah. Look, you're not going to be that good of a team if you can't consistently deliver results on the road. What the Raptors, it's funny because their defensive rating on the road isn't that bad. It's not standing out. They're 20th in offense on the road, and they're, middle of the pack defensively on the road. They're actually 8th, which is a little surprising. But it just you don't get that feeling of they come out sharp or intense. The standout games to me are at OKC, where at least in that game they were so shorthanded, and guys were sick on that team, and whatever. Right, the circumstances weren't good for that one. But that Indiana game, they came out sharp, but their defense ultimately cost them in the 4th. Right, the Pacers really were able to get free, and they were able to just come back on the Raptors and hand them a pretty terrible loss on that front. And then you look at the game last night, and you just think about it, they didn't have the proper intensity. First off, Zion is, such a difficult matchup that you need to bring the doubles, and you need to be so good at bringing the doubles. And usually the Raptors are quite good at double teaming guys, right? But with Zion, it's a special case because you can't come too soft against him, because what he's going to do is just explode and just bump past you, right? He's just so strong. You need to get to that position first before he can outmuscle you and get to that spot. And that's what Zion consistently did last night. And, you also can't go too early either because he's a pretty good passer. And so I just thought on both fronts, the Raptors were just kind of struggling in that matchup. In addition to the fact that I think we should acknowledge that the Pelicans are actually a pretty bad matchup for the Raptors. Like, I apologize for saying in the Bet River segment yesterday that I ultimately caved to picking the Raptors because I really did look at this thing like this was going to be a tough one. The front court that they have, the Pelicans, they offer JV in the starting five, right? He's obviously just no one on the Raptors has that kind of size, right? Even fully healthy, no one has that kind of size. Koloko is that tall, but he's not nearly that strong. We know who JV is, right? But they just consistently bring size off the bench. I thought Larry Nance played really well for them off the bench. Even bringing in Hernan Gomez, the other Hernan Gomez, like there's just that team is able to punish you on the glass. And when you thought about it, the Raptors probably needed to win the possession battle. They're not winning the possession battle against a team like that, especially when they're not that attentive, on both sides of the floor. So. Yeah, I think they dug themselves too deep of a hole. I do like that they still gave some kind of a comeback push. I appreciate that they went on an 11-0 run to cut the lead to 20.
That's how you know you're getting blown out, man.
11-0 and you're down 20.
This is the YouTube meme of Chris Paul hits a 3 to cut the Mavs lead to like 41 in Game 7.
That's how I felt last night, except the Raptors weren't really making threes outside of Gary. But, I do appreciate that at least they were able to compose themselves and deliver some kind of effort. Obviously, it wasn't going to be enough to finish the game. What a great header and great finish there by Germany, Serge Gnabry with the goal.
Please, World Cup, please end.
It's not ending, bro. It's going to be another month.
Beautiful game.
But, at least they gave that kind of effort, which I think is what you want to see from them consistently.
But I want to see.
If you started the game like that, you would have had a real chance to win that game, despite all the mismatches.
I don't want to give that much credit to them when they're making a comeback down 31.
Well, I want to give credit to the guys who played hard last night. Pascal really led the group.
Yep.
Gary really led the group.
Yeah.
Chris and Juancho were delivering with their energy, and then OG, after he got out of early foul trouble, was decent. Right? Again, it wasn't like anyone stopped Zion by any means, but I thought he at least kept them somewhat reasonably in check, enough for the Raptors to make that push before obviously Zion slammed the door shut. But yeah, I do want to show them some credit because the last thing you would have wanted to see was them just completely roll over.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't give a team a lot of credit when they're down 31.
Fair.
But yeah, Pascal, 23 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, scored the first 9 points for the Raptors.
All against Herb Jones, by the way.
Yeah.
Like an elite defender. And, Pascal just went into the post, got him with the up and under for a layup, spin move, hook shot in the lane, a pop behind a screen for a corner 3. Like, that was so impressive to watch. And he was the reason why the Raptors actually led early on. And we're talking about very, very early on. And the Pelicans, immediately, to their credit, decided, look, you know what? Herb is a great defender. We're going to give him that trust. But as soon as we see that happen, we're going to adapt our strategy. They clearly had a plan B, which was the zone. Right, they really zoned the Raptors, and I think the zone defense just continues to be something that throws a wrench into things for the Raptors offensively. They're not able to go to Pascal nearly the same when they're going to zone like that. And then after that, they're hard doubling Pascal as well. So, yeah, credit to the Pelicans coaching staff for that one. I think they clearly had a good plan, but then again, I thought Pascal also handled himself decently. Like, he didn't really allow himself to be taken out of the game. He continued to impact the game, found different ways to affect it. And I think, second half, he was the one who was giving effort. Like, there's a play where the Raptors were, lost the ball and it was a 2-on-1 for the Pelicans, and then Pascal raced back for a chase down block. Didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because the Pelicans had numbers and they were able to just put it right back in. The thing is, you're telling me your best player is giving that kind of hustle and effort for a chase down block and no one else even comes back in transition to get the rebound?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Stop giving them so much credit for yesterday's game. I think we know now with Pascal, especially we've seen him a couple games now coming back from injury, what the baseline to expect from him is really in every game this season, right? Like he's definitely made the leap and he's there. And I think the bigger concern is just how many guys can you really rely on every night to have that baseline? And we can go through some of these players. I think I think one of the few bright spots yesterday was obviously Gary. Coming off the bench again. Actually, first of all, what are your thoughts about Thad Young starting and Gary on the bench right now?
I think they like the idea of it, and I think Nick is looking for different looks and matchups. I wouldn't mind if he committed to the idea of we use certain guys for certain spots, right? So in a game like this against the Pelicans, where they have a lot of size up front, you need shot blocking. So I actually wouldn't mind if they went to Christian to start. If the idea of the fifth starter slot is to be fluid, then yes, I think you should pick the matchups. But then again, I think Thad has done really well in the starting role, and I don't think that he was even involved in the game last night. Like, how many times did he touch the ball at the post, or did the Raptors run pick and roll at him? I thought they probably would have done that a little bit more, considering the fact that you had JV out there, and JV is usually a guy where if you see him on the floor, usually you have your point guard like a Fred VanVleet who can knock down a three to run pick and rolls at him, involve him pick and roll, and then maybe you slide the pass over to Thad. But they didn't really run a lot of pick and roll in that game. And then, of course, Fred also got himself ejected. So,
oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Fred.
Oh, brother. What a game last night.
Fred getting ejected at the start of the second half did he even clap? He just clapped and said, come on, at the ref?
Yeah.
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 That's tough.
This guy, it was like a scene from Arrested Development. Like
Nick did say
it was not demonstrative
after the game that both texts were terrible. So
but you know what? It was also terrible. It was just seeing your floor leader and your coach constantly yelling at the ref for the whole game. Like I get it. Like I get it. Like were the calls great last night? No. Would you have wanted more of those in your favor? Yes. But at the same time, you look at it and it's like that can't be your whole leadership structure cannot be geared towards arguing at the ref.
Yeah,
like Nick tried to challenge. Did you see Nick's challenge last night? He tried to challenge a take foul,
which you can't, right?
Which you can't do. Yeah. And also, it was clear Pascal was committing a take foul. Doesn't matter that he swiped at the ball.
Yeah, I think
all season the referees across the league have called that a take foul. So what are you even challenging? The referees go back and look at the thing like, well, actually, it was a play on the ball, so I guess you don't get one free throw. Like
Nick's one of the worst coaches when it comes to challenges, man.
I think
Can
we
I just
do
say
need
that?
to keep stats on that. I'm just curious in terms of which coach saves the most points.
I feel like the record hasn't been good on that end. But I'm with you, though. I don't mind the complaining, especially when it's a close game and maybe one or two calls are going to swing your way.
Yeah, of course.
But I feel like when you're consistently doing it, and especially like across different games, blowouts, close games, everything, like I'm just not sure how beneficial that is. And so I'm completely with you on that. And a lot of times I think in like a case like last night, it's just a lot of frustration. Right?
It is frustration.
And it's frustration at themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
At your own performance.
I'd actually rather see them yell at each other.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Maybe they're doing that. I gotta find out. Yeah, but back to Gary. So he came off the bench and 35 points. He had 6 threes, 12 of 20 from the field. So the 35 points is tied for third most by a Raptors player off the bench in franchise history. Only 2 players who had more points coming off the bench. Your guy, Donyell Marshall.
My guy.
38 points in 2005.
Was that the 12-3 game?
Could be.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, look that up.
Yeah.
And Lou Williams. I feel like he would have started in that game, though. I don't know. Lou Williams had 36 points.
Yeah.
In 2014.
I remember that game. Yeah.
So.
I think it was against the Cavs.
Yeah, no, I like Gary coming off the bench, and you could see really early on too, even when the game was getting out of hand, that he was just really aggressive, looking for his shot, getting to the basket, and really just filling out that role. He's also got 11 steals in his last 4 games now. And it was nice to see. It was nice. It was like a lone bright spot in the second half, and then somehow that bright spot turned into kind of a game. Like the Raptors did get back in the game, largely thanks to Gary.
Well, I think first off, on a basketball perspective, like Pascal plays really well with Gary, and Gary plays really well with Pascal. I think that 2-man game that they have at the top of the floor where Pascal's able to operate, and usually the help comes from the perimeter against Pascal. At least in this game it did. And that's where Gary's able to pop free for threes. And I thought, he also got into a nice rhythm. The Raptors ran a couple more actions from last night where he was coming around some screens and stuff like that. A couple of pin downs, and that's one way you can get him going. Like, I think that's more of a concerted effort for the Raptors to call a play for Gary Trent Jr., which they actually don't specifically call plays that much each time down the floor. Like, they usually run their flow offense, and I think especially with Pascal back in the lineup, the ball's just going to naturally go towards him. But they were running a couple of set actions, for Gary where he starts off, near the baseline, comes across 2 screens, comes up the top of the floor, someone hits him with the pass, and he immediately rises for 3. I thought they established his rhythm early, which was nice to see, especially with that second unit where if he's now going to be playing with them consistently, he is their best option to score a lot of the time. So call plays for him. And I thought he did well, and I just appreciate how professional he's been in his approach. Like whether that's his performance on the court in the last 2 games here, where he's he shot better or he's defended better. Whether it's off the court when they asked him questions, right? Because, it was Gary's turn to go to the podium yesterday. And obviously he was asked about, how are you feeling about coming off the bench? And there was no signs of, anything other than just sheer focus from Gary. There wasn't any moping. There wasn't short answers. There wasn't I don't want to say anything, but low key, you could tell I'm not happy about it. Well, Gary was just I got to trust him to work, and the quote that he gave to Kayla on the broadcast where he was talking about how, I haven't done anything in this league to feel like I'm owed anything. Right. So I just got to keep working and keep working. That's the message. And that shows the sign of professionalism. That shows how humble he is in his approach. And I think in the long run, that's the kind of stuff that's going to get you out of these shooting funks and get you back into spots where you're relied upon. And also, the most important thing for these guys is getting paid off of this kind of stuff. So I really appreciate the way Gary played last night. Not just because he scored, but just his approach was good. He had half the Raptors' 3-pointers and steals last night. Just one guy. And he brought energy to a game that otherwise the Raptors could have lost by 40.
Yeah, and I've always said too, I know starting in this league is a big deal to a lot of the guys, and you think about Gary and his contract situation after the season, but there's just also value in being put in the best position to succeed. Yeah. And maybe it is with the second unit. We've only seen it for a couple of games now. Obviously, he had a really good game yesterday, but I'll be interested to see kind of long term, in the stretch coming up here if Nick continues to go with Gary in the second unit, especially if it's producing results like this. On the flip side, Scotty Barnes, 21 minutes, 1 of 7, minus 14.
No, this was a real 21. Can you do something for me?
21.
20 minutes. Can you do something for me?
Oh, man. Didn't play
really.
Pretty much bench for the entire second half. Most of the second half, I want to say. Yeah?
Yeah.
I wasn't really tracking the minutes.
I think one of the last plays that he made before Nick decided not to play for the rest of the night was he got super low in a defensive crouch against Zion at half court, and Zion just crossed him up and went straight to the basket for a dunk.
Yeah.
Which is look, again, making a hustle play is great. Picking guys up is great. Taking on the challenge of guarding Zion is great.
Yeah.
Is that a smart play, though? Is it smart to get really deep in your defensive stance to the point where you get crossed at half court against a guy who has really good handle and not someone who's even a threat to shoot or pull up? Is that how you guard that kind of player, right? It's the same kind of deal as he flies in for that rebound at the end of the first quarter and is oh, okay, cool. The Raptors got one stop here in the first quarter. Let's see what they can do with it. And instead of just holding on to the ball with 2 seconds left,
oh, that was tough.
he throws it. What was he even trying to do? He threw it underneath the basket to maybe so that Christian Koloko can throw a 90-foot lob for a shot.
Yeah, and the Pelicans scored off that, right?
Yeah, and he threw it instead directly to Larry Nance, who dunked the ball. It was so demoralizing. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I know. You know what? Honestly, you always turn it to me for basketball takes. I'd love to hear what your basketball takes are on this one.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the terrible turnovers. I think you look at the body language and the energy level, things that we've already talked about. And it's just been a struggle for Scotty this season, man. And I really think, I don't know if it's one of those things where it's just a stretch that he needs to go through. He's going to have these ups and downs, and maybe he needs to go through this for an entire season and kind of just come out of it and figure out what he needs to work on in the summer and kind of come back with just more perspective on just kind of his overall role next year. I don't know if it's one of those things where you can just say he's having a couple of bad games and then because he might bounce back tomorrow against Brooklyn and put up a lot of numbers, but it's gotten to the point where I think a quarter of the way through the season, I just need to see it more consistently, right? I'm not sure if 1 or 2 games is going to be one of those things where I'm going to be okay, Scotty's back now. I think there's I just clearly think there's just more to it in terms of him just adjusting to the expectations or whatever it might be, his role on the team. And I think we've held him to such high expectations after winning the Rookie of the Year. I just wonder if it's better instead of, obviously us coming here, we're going to point out, obviously, all these bad games that he's having. But is it time to just not have these outsized expectations for him for this year?
Sure. I think that's fine.
You know what? Take the good as a surprise at this point and just let him work through it and have him grow.
So to essentially treat him like a rookie again.
Yeah.
Because last year when Scotty had bad games, it wasn't wow, Scotty was really disappointing tonight. It was
yes,
well, Scotty couldn't really get into the game. And some games was wow, look what he did, and I think some of that, but also at the same time, if you're entrusted to be a starter in this lineup, shouldn't there be some sort of baseline to what you can expect?
No,
are there not like 2 or 3 things that you expect any player to come in and say,
yes,
right?
But I think that's why it's like, I don't think we should overreact when Nick sits him for like an entire second half.
Or brings him off the bench.
Yeah, because I think, you earn expectations in this league and like you earn minutes in this league. Like, I don't look at that as a benching. I just look at it as Nick knew that he wasn't one of the 5 guys that was going to help them come back.
Yeah.
Right?
So if we are going to like at least set like just basic expectations.
Yeah,
what are the basic
You've talked about this. Your favorite word this year is the non-negotiables, right?
So defense.
And I think the non-negotiables are still the exact same that you talked about, right? The defense, the energy, the effort, and all of that.
Well, I mean, last night, when you watch through the film, so he didn't take a lot of shots, right? He took 7 shots. 5 of those were threes. Obviously, he's going to take a couple more threes because of the fact that Pascal is operating a lot now. And so, everyone's not supposed to be in the paint, especially when Thad Young's on the floor. And Thad's your de facto center. Like before, that could have been Scotty when they started small, right? He would be the de facto 5, and he'd be in the paint and the dunker, and then Pascal draws 2, and he shovels it over to Scotty and he finishes, right? We saw 2, but like, so he's taking more threes. It's not entirely up to him, right? But at the same time, like, there was not even one play, I remember last night, where he impacted the paint. When you look at his 5 assists, which is, again, not a bad total, right? Roughly where he's at for the season. His assists are up. But if you look at the film of those 5 assists, he doesn't touch the paint in any of those in those plays. And that's not to say that that's the only way to record an assist, right? But at the same time, what the Raptors want is for guys to drive, touch the paint, kick out, or finish, right? And it's not even that complicated in terms of the general principle of sort of how the Raptors want to play. It's actually very similar to a lot of teams across the league. But you look at the plays last night, is there an instance where Scotty impacted the paint? And more importantly, is he getting there on his own, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's through the post up, whether that's through a drive, whether that's off a pick and roll or whatever. Like, yes, he had 2 paint attempts last night. Those were both situations where Pascal drew a double, he ducked in, and once he finished, once he didn't. But, like, can you get there on your own? Because otherwise, what are you really asking him to do, right? Like, essentially, you're just saying play a supporting role, play some defense, rebound the ball, show some energy. And on that front, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, you could say we have outsized expectations because, you won Rookie of the Year and all that stuff. But at the same time, like, that's what expectations for anybody to come into the game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think the expectations in terms of, like, the non-negotiables, like, have to be there. I think it's just that, he just hasn't earned, us expecting anything more than that at this point. You know what I mean? Like he had a great, Rookie of the Year season.
Yep.
And I think he was expected to make a jump. And we can talk about, people always say, like, development year to year can change and stuff like that. It's just that the way he's performing right now, like, I just don't have those expectations for him at this point. Like as a, like.
But do you expect him to play hard?
Yes. Yeah. No, those things definitely. I think those are 2 separate conversations. I think the most disappointing thing you can say about Scotty is, like, with his skill set, it's disappointing to see him in so many games, like you said, just not making an impact.
Yeah.
In any way, right? Because you look at his performance yesterday, like, he did not impact the game in any way.
Who was even guarding him? Was it Trey Murphy the third? Was it Dyson Daniels?
And the shot
These guys are tall guards, sure, but Scotty is. Here's the thing, like, maybe it doesn't show up as much on TV, but if you like see him Scotty in real life or stand next to Scotty in real life, he's enormous. He's really physically imposing. Maybe not the way Zion is, because obviously Zion is unique in that sense. But like Scotty's like the biggest guy on the team, right? Maybe aside from OG, actually, OG is also built like a tank. But like seriously, he's on that level of like a physical, just gifts really. And so again, like you go back to this game and you watch it through, and you're like, he didn't go in the paint once.
Yeah,
and I get it. Like there's size in the middle of the thing. The thing is, sometimes you just go to the paint and then you kick out, right? Like just like Fred. Like 70% of the time, Fred drives, he's looking for the kick out.
Yeah,
right. And obviously, it's different because Fred is much smaller, but he's still making an effort to get into the paint. And it's not like Fred played well. Like we could easily be here doing a segment on Fred and being like, "How are you getting ejected in a game where your team is really down bad? You're putting them even in a worse spot. Why is the shooting so inconsistent from him?" His field goal percentage, which isn't the best way to measure him because of the fact that he's just a lot of threes, but his field goal percentage is under 40 for the season.
Yeah,
he hasn't really shot.
He's like a career 40. He's like a career 40% shooter though. But I guess it's because, like you said, a lot of that shot distribution is from 3, right?
Sure, yeah. But like we could easily we didn't really focus on Fred, and arguably there should be a bigger focus on Fred. But at the same time, I think what people were expecting from Scotty this year versus what we're actually seeing. is night and day.
No, it's a huge it's a huge discrepancy.
And this is the central part of what Raptor fans are wondering about this season is coming into this year. And you can go through any sort of expectation about the Raptors, whether that was from fans, whether that was from local media, whether that was from national media. The conversation was all the same. The Raptors are a pretty good team. Pascal's really good. OG, if he can stay healthy, he's really good. Fred obviously played at an all-star level. Maybe he's not always that way, but if you can get his minutes down, he could be more efficient, and he's a very smart player for you. You have good role players. You have guys who can, you got unlimited wings off the bench, like this is a Hooters or something. And then the big thing was, can Scotty take that next level? People were making the case that Scotty can be the best player on this team as recently as like now, or as recently as next season.
Sure.
And that has just not materialized. And that's where the central disconnect is with the fan base, is sort of just like wondering, how can you get there? And what's going on and what's holding him from getting there?
For sure.
And this is that's what I'm saying. Like it's cool to not have expectations of him. I get it. Like we can pretend like he didn't win Rookie of the Year. We can.
You gotta do better, fam.
But that's ultimately the case, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody is ultimately responsible for their own performance. This is pro sports. At the end of the day, you're not really owed anything. You look at what Gary said in his quotes. You come off the bench for because of the fact that he wasn't performing, and now he's trying to perform his very best. And you can see the effort from him. You see the intensity from him. He's not making any issues. He's looking good. You see the body language. He's going hard. Like Gary Trent Jr. is going into the paint. He's not even a slasher by trade, and he's gone to the paint more often.
Yeah.
So where is that? And we just can't continuously have this conversation. Like it's dominated the topic for the whole season, and it's not just because we obviously as hosts we got to come up here and set what the topic is. We set the topics according to what people are curious about, and that's major. That's the main point of conversation that people are having. What's going on with Scotty?
No, for sure. I think that is like the number one story for the Raptors, like through the first quarter of the season. And the other thing for me, I know you probably got, Brian Windhorst, Hoop Collective on your top 5 Spotify rap.
Oh, easily.
And one of the things Windy always likes to say is like, don't judge people by what they say, like judge them by their actions, right? I know you know this. As a diehard,
why are you saying
as
this
a diehard,
Windy?
no,
like,
no, as a diehard, I know you know this. No. But he says this all the time. And I think it's like, look at what Nick said a couple weeks ago when he was asked about Scotty and said, yeah, he was happy with everything that he was doing, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I'm going to judge him by his actions, and his actions is like, he's not happy with Scotty right now because Scotty didn't play yesterday in the second half when they were coming back. Like, like this, like, I think as much as we talk about it, I think there's probably a lot of frustration, within the team too. And maybe just with the coaching staff trying to figure out. And I don't think this conversation needs to always be like a referendum of like, is Scotty a bust versus is Scotty going to be a superstar?
All, no one at all said that
But I feel like this always feels like it goes to the extremes. Whereas, like, I think we're just looking at a player as he develops and as he grows and goes through the different phases, right? Like, in the same way that we celebrated him last year, I think it's okay to point out these things and be critical of him right now. And I think at the end of the day, like, I think all we want and all the Raptors want is for him to come out of it and have this as a learning experience, right?
Yeah.
As something that he can look back on maybe at the All-Star break at the end of the season and say that this was something that he needed to learn about himself, about his role on the team, about like what kind of level he needed to bring on the floor consistently to become the star, the player that we want him to be. And I think it's super frustrating for a lot of people, and why a lot of people are jumping on this topic is because Scotty is the key for this team to go from a development team into a contender. Like, and it's even more frustrating seeing how Pascal has been playing this year at this All-NBA first team level. I look at this Raptors team as they've got that superstar player in Pascal. Like, are the pieces around him going to allow the Raptors to start moving forward as a contender, right? Because, like, if you want to talk about a big picture, like, are we on Pascal's timeline in terms of wanting to contend as a team, right? Like, his contract is coming up to all of that stuff. But when you have a player performing at that level, as Pascal has this season, to me, like, you can raise the expectations of what the team can be, but you're going to need players around him to perform at a certain level to have those expectations. And right now they don't.
A level of consistency. And I think you think back to the summer, right? This is the central debate we were all having, right? KD's on the table. The Raptors keep getting linked to KD. What are we going to do about it, right? And the idea then was essentially like, how good is Pascal? And how good would KD plus Pascal be, right? And with hindsight, if you knew Pascal was at this level that he came out to be this year, and I thought Pascal didn't even play all that great yesterday, but he still had a really good game. And he still really led the team, and his leadership this season has been exemplary. And he gave great level-headed quotes yesterday after the game as well. Like, you're just kind of doing everything you expect out of that number one guy for you. You know, you think back to that timeline, and it's just like, yeah, well, you know, this is why it's probably real hard to be a GM. I mean, not probably, definitely. Because
of course,
I'd be lying awake every single night.
No, of course it's
KD,
hard.
Man.
You watch a Scotty performance like this, and you'll be like, why didn't we? You know, if that trade was on the table, why didn't we make the move? But we could easily be here in like 2 weeks or even next Monday. And Scotty's had a triple-double against Brooklyn, maybe scores 35 against Orlando on Saturday while we're enjoying our Chung Chung hot dogs at the arena.
Oh, that sounds like a dream. That sounds like a dream.
But, you know,
First star Rovin, yeah.
No, you can easily flip-flop and second-guess and have hindsight and all of that, right? Yeah. And it's easy to – LeBron talking about how he discovered Scotty in seventh grade.
I saw Scotty Barnes for the first time in the 7th grade, and I told one of my good friends that –
Which good friend, man? You didn't verify this.
Special.
No, we need to interview LeBron's friends because he also told his friends that Kobe was about to score 70 that night.
Oh, my God.
And then he's like, well, you might as well go for 80 then.
Oh, God. No, but no, the KD stuff is interesting because I think if they had Pascal and KD, we'd be talking about like what are the pieces we're adding to contend with Boston and Milwaukee. But you know.
Look, listen. Ultimately, even you know, obviously that ship has sailed, right? But maybe I think right now,
maybe not fully.
No, the ship has sailed. Alex, I'm sorry to tell you, but the Nets being pretty committed to each other right now.
No, listen, the Nets have a different ship like every 2 weeks, man.
That's
It'll sail back.
Well, this current ship, they're committed to KD. All right,
there's another iceberg coming.
No, I mean KD wanted Steve Nash gone, and they replaced him with Mark or with
Nets.
Vaughn, and
the Nets organization is week to week, man.
You're right.
The ship has not sailed; it's still at the dock.
But like, yeah, I think the main point is forgetting all that stuff and just getting back to like what makes this like organization successful, is playing hard on defense.
Yeah,
you know, crashing the glass.
As frustrated as you are, I want Scotty to be frustrated, man. Scotty should be frustrated.
I don't know. Have you seen the? I mean, again, not have you seen the body language and on Bill Simmons being like, you know, a lot of bad vibes of the game or whatever. But like, I don't know. Some of it's also kind of obvious. Like basketball is very like transparent as a sport.
I want Scotty to be frustrated and take it out on the court and like play the way that we've seen him.
Well, I hope next game that you'll have that chance. But anyway, we're gonna take a break. This was not a good game, and Scotty wasn't the only guy who played poorly. Let's be honest about it. But yeah, that's where they're at, and hopefully they bounce back. You know, as Matt Devlin would say if he came into the studio, it's 1 of 82, boys. It's 1 of 82. All right. So we're gonna take a break.
What happens when we're at 82, though? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, usually they don't play hard for 82, actually. Right. That's usually a game where they play against the Knicks and Steve Mihalik is starting. But anyway, I'm your host, Willu, and you're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Continue to be joined producer and co-host Alex Wong. So we're going to forget about that game, which is, I think, the best advice. Is just forget that Pelicans game. Didn't happen.
Yeah, it's easier for me than you, man. You hold on to these
Wasn't
things.
even on this network. I don't even know where I saw that game last night.
Oh, okay. We're doing that now? Shouts to Wes.
What was
J.
on
Lou. What?
the network?
Oh, okay.
So I was on Sportsnet now recently.
Yeah.
And I was like, how hungry are you? A new episode.
I gotta do
featuring Fred VanVleet.
I gotta do my Thursday shoutouts first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you not read
Did I just transition too hard?
I really love you teeing all that up. I really appreciate you. That was so beautiful. But why didn't you look at the Google Doc and see the part where it says Thursday shoutouts?
The only thing I'm looking at is TV number 2 as Costa Rica tries to get back into this game.
Since I'll be producing from home tomorrow, and apparently I don't trust you to do shoutouts by yourself.
Well, I can't do this. You know
Shouts to Derek Brandeo, Jennifer Wallach still on vacation, Frank Baraska, Scott Lundy helping us today as well, filling in for Frank, Devang, Kyle Craig, Josiah, JR. Shouts to JR, man. We're going to start bringing JR into the Raptor Show.
No, I know JR's one of your
Universe
favorites. He's a
studio.
breakout star this season, JR.
Yeah, he was like, now that you're a full-time employee, you know, you have all these discounts available. I was like, oh, okay. Chris Troza, Ryan Fabro, DT. I think DT's on the West Coast this week. Greg Sansoni, Pat Flash, everybody else supporting us behind the scenes. Just want to give a shout-out again to my barber, Hannah.
Again, huh?
No, because, like, she's not going to listen to every episode. I'm like, yo, make sure you turn on Friday's episode. You're going to get a shout out. She's going to turn on and hear you talk to Alvin Williams tomorrow.
That's fine.
Special shout out, too, by the way, to Lindsay Dunn's mom, Joyce, who we met at the arena earlier this week.
Yes.
I can't tell if Lindsay's lying, but she says that Joyce listens to us every day. She was really excited to meet us, take a photo of us, so super appreciative.
Yeah.
So
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, and Lindsay will be joining us next Monday.
That's correct. Yeah.
So we got some good guests next week.
No, I'm excited.
Apparently,
I'm really excited.
you know, we're trying to get the Pound the Rock guys back in next Wednesday.
What do you mean we're trying
Joseph
to?
Cacharo and Joe
Those
Wolfon.
are our guys.
And do you know there might be a holdup because Joe Wolfon has a haircut appointment conflict. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Of the two people from that crew that I would have bet on having a haircut conflict.
I just assume like Cash has a barber like at his apartment all the time. Like I've never seen a guy with consistently having a fresh cut like all the time.
Oh man,
never even seen this guy with one loose hair.
Joe Cash is fresh to death, man.
Yeah. But Wolfon?
Come on,
different
man.
story, bro.
No,
this guy's gonna
come
come in
on.
with his Rasho shirt on.
Oh, come on.
And another.
Man,
I can't even. Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully we can work that out with Wolfon.
Shouts to Joyce, by the way. But yeah. So for people that are interested, I know last year we talked a little bit about the Mitchell and Ness, the Boba Raptors collab. So a friend of the program, CCYA, setting up a holiday market at the Alley in Richmond Hill on Bayview Ave, 8750 Bayview Ave this Sunday. And they're going to have Boba Raptors merch there. So just want Raptors fans to know that.
Nice.
So it's 12 to 5 p.m.
I have one on my
Sunday.
desk. You should have told me. I could have brought it to the studio.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Most people listen on the pod. And also on Sunday, I'm going to be getting rid of some of my vintage stuff.
What?
At Superfresh. Oh. Superfresh is having a vintage market, and Trevor invited me. He's nice enough to give me, a rack to hang some of my clothes.
Wow.
So I've gone through at my parents', gone through some of my vintage stuff.
So what are the
anybody
pieces
wants to drop by?
What are the pieces you put available?
Superfresh, 12 to 8 p.m. I just got a bunch of vintage tees, some sneakers, hats. I found a DDA Drogba Chelsea jersey.
A legend, man.
With like the patches too. I think it's got like the Champions League patches on it. I don't know.
Wow.
Please talk. I'm coughing.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, I really love Didier Drogba as a player.
Yeah.
Even though he did not play for Liverpool and often hurt Liverpool.
Yeah.
Just one of the best strikers the
that's
Premier
good
League's ever
enough.
seen. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. 12,
Chelsea hasn't had a good striker
come
since.
through, man. Noon to 8 p.m. on Sunday at Superfresh. Will won't be there, so if you're trying to see Will,
mean,
I'm just there's people that want to see Will.
I could be there.
Will will not be there.
I don't have clothes to give away.
All right, we got to bring JR. When we bring JR in, we're going to talk about the pair of Fila's that you asked us if we should buy.
I'm already returning those.
And we
as
both
we
gave you the yellow card.
That was a red card. They're actually such ugly shoes. Like it's one of those things where you're like online shopping. You're like, because it was like Cyber Monday or Black Friday. One of my
only person still hitting that Cyber Monday.
That's basically my Easter. Black Friday and then Cyber Monday. It's a 4-day holiday for me.
Like Black Friday, I hear about it. You're the first person in real life that I've heard reference Cyber Monday
Anyway,
in like a decade.
so
Just go find a deal during a regular day, man. Why you gotta wait? Are you lining up at Best Buy to buy a TV?
no, I have one already, man. Bought it at a warehouse in Scarborough. I'm not even kidding. Anyway,
all right, now you can do the transition. If you, but yeah, tell me about your.
But no,
your deals,
sometimes you're just like shopping online. You're like, when you see the small photo of the shoe, you're like, yeah, it might look all right. You're like, yeah, it's a little out there, but I could be out there. And then you get the shoe in person. You're like, oh my,
you weren't
God,
feeling
this thing is. No, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling those feelers. So anyway, SVP, it's coming back to you. All right.
Oh,
just letting you know on air. It's coming back.
Oh man. All right. Anyways, as Will mentioned, Fred VanVleet was on this week's episode of How Hungry Are You with Serge Ibaka, now available on Sportsnet, YouTube, and he has a couple interesting things to say. So we have a few clips here. The first clip, he was asked about Kawhi Leonard.
If Kawhi stayed, do we go back to back?
Three-peat.
Three-peat.
Yeah, for sure. It was just a perfect group of individuals, and we all understood. Everybody had the right mindset for the roles. I think definitely we would have won a few more.
Make or miss, the Raptors would have three-peated if Kawhi Leonard stayed.
I mean, I don't think Kawhi stayed healthy for those 3 seasons, but you never know. Like maybe under different circumstances, maybe he does stay. You don't know, right? But I mean, I think they would have definitely repeated. Like they were clearly going to be better than any team that went to the bubble. Yep. And
they were 46-18 before the pandemic shut down, including a 15-game win streak.
Yep. And then they came back to the bubble. They played those 8 games as like
7-1.
7-1, including a Stanley Johnson game winner.
Sixers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Is this the dagger?
Yeah.
Part 2. Yeah, they would have beaten Boston.
Matt Devlin should have said, "Is this the butter knife?"
They would have beaten Miami. I think they would have beaten the Lakers in the finals. So yes, I'm with Fred. They would have repeated.
3-peat would have
and
been
then going
tough.
for a 3-peat in Tampa.
No, in Tampa would have been wild.
Man, that would have been so fun.
Yeah, I don't know if anything would have happened in Tampa.
Who do you think would have benefited the most? Because I think it's interesting. Fred mentioned that there was perfect pieces there, and I agree with him. Like, what do you think Kawhi staying would have impacted? Pascal's development, Fred's development, OG's development.
I mean, it probably impacts their opportunity, but at the same time, I think guys like Fred and
First
Pascal
of all,
and OG,
they would have had plenty of opportunity because Kawhi was going to play like
he would have played half the
games.
Yeah. But those guys are such hardworking players that you trust that they would have got there anyway. Like I actually don't have any doubt that Pascal would have put in the work to become the player that he is today. He just wouldn't be playing as many minutes. And yeah, I mean, I'm down bad, man. It was great to hear. I totally agree, but at the same time, I'm like, again, why did he leave?
Yeah, no, we've always said that. That's what I love to see a healthy Kawhi and OG because we only saw very brief glimpses of that. And OG obviously was not the same player that he is now.
Yeah. Well, because I think Danny would have immediately left the team anyway because I just didn't think the Raptors had a lot of interest in re-signing him in free agency. I think that would have been OG's spot.
Man. I mean, Serge Ibaka said himself after they won the championship, he told Masai, boss man, I think we can win 2 more. I think the general vibe was that they were at least going to repeat and go for 3. Yeah, you're down.
No,
sorry,
this show has the worst. This episode has the worst vibes. I'm sorry.
That's it. I'm having a good time.
All right.
You're just talking really slow, man, after listening to you at 3 times speed.
Only vibes were Cyber Monday.
Here is the second clip of Fred being asked another tough question from Serge Ibaka.
What was the worst? Losing in the bubble or not making the playoffs?
Dang, that's tough. I think losing in the bubble was worse because I really believe that we could have won a championship that year.
Like that game.
Yeah. We don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we really should have won a championship that year, and I think we all felt that and believed.
Make or miss, losing in the bubble was worse than not making the playoffs in the Tampa season.
Honestly, at some points, I came to grips with the idea that the Raptors were just going to tank 1 year. They got Scotty out of it. We got some Malachi hype out of it. Like it was fine, I guess. Like it's
the Tampa season was just
appreciated
miserable.
what they were able to do.
The Tampa season was just miserable. Can we say that?
Yeah, it was miserable.
Just
Sergio Scariolo coached the game. You remember that? The whole coaching staff was sick. Nick, there was a thought that Nick would have coached the game.
And then Chris Finch just fled during that period.
Yeah, Chris Finch.
What did
ditched.
you know?
I think that game 7 against the Celtics, like It was there for them. Like, it was literally anybody's game. It came down to like 1 or 2 possessions, and they just couldn't get it done. And you just do wonder, like, if they got through that series, you know, different matchup, like, could they do a little bit better? But yeah.
Yeah, there's so many classic games in that Celtics-Raptors series. The OG game winner, obviously.
Yep.
Game 6 is a stone cold classic,
Game 6
too.
is a classic. Shout out to Norm Powell.
But it's so hard for me to go back and want to watch those, just knowing how the series ended.
I actually have, yeah, you're right. I actually have not watched a single highlight from that series except for
the,
OG's game
Yeah,
winner.
whereas the championship season, like, I go back and revisit those games all the time.
Yeah, fair.
All right, last clip. Here's Fred being asked another tough question from Serge.
If Masai came to you and said he can trade Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant,
He has never.
would you take it?
Does he not know Scotty?
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it.
I told you I'm a loyal guy, man. I'm not a trade guy. I wouldn't do
So
it.
you would turn down Kevin Durant to keep Scotty.
Yes.
Cap?
First off, I think I just want Derek in the back to just clip the way he said Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes for
One more time, please. Just one more time, please.
Scotty Barnes for.
Yo, shout out to Serge.
Where did those characters come from, man?
No, shout out to Serge.
No,
man.
man.
You know,
Listen,
the pause makes
shout
me
to Serge,
realize.
First off, he speaks 5 languages,
No,
so
of
like no
course.
one should be saying that
No,
anything like that. It's just so funny the way he said it, man.
I'm the king of mispronouncing names, so I can't really hate, but just the pause that he gave, you could realize he doesn't know who Scotty is.
He slowed down. And
No, he
like,
did I
pronounce his name right?
Giannis Antetokounmpo or something, but he's like, no, Barnes is a very common name.
Oh, man. And, you know, Fred was later pressed about which teammate he actually would trade for KD. And instead of answering the question, he drank the cricket tea.
Which is literally a bucket of water with crickets in it.
Listen, man, we don't have time to relitigate, you know, Scotty for KD. I'm sure that's going to come up again.
I mean,
2 teams are playing each other.
Scotty Barnes.
2 teams are playing each other tomorrow.
Oh my God, man.
But yeah, you know what? Serge's been asking the tough questions.
Yo, Serge is the best journalist in this city.
Serge has been asking the tough questions, and it's honestly been a classic season of how hungry are you? So
no, it has been. No, but seriously though, like I think it's just great to see the vibes. Like I think there's sometimes where he gets guests on, like Alec Manoah. Like you could tell, not only does he not know who Alec Manoah is, he doesn't know what baseball is.
yeah, he knows less baseball than you.
No, I know a lot of baseball.
No, but you can see, I know what you're saying. With Serge and Fred, even the early conversation in the
such
episode,
a great rapport.
That's the bond when you win a championship together.
Yeah.
Right? And even Serge talking about how he was surprised that Fred ended up becoming an all-star.
Sure.
Because you think about it, both of them came off the bench during the championship season.
They can actually go back and forth, which
I think it's amazing, and I think you can see how happy they are for each other's successes. Before we go, Fred was served chicken gizzard and chicken heart. It was fried.
That sounds delicious to me,
This
man.
is what I try to say to people.
What?
I know the whole thing about Serge show is like, oh, he's getting them to try this like wild, crazy food. Every time I see the food
sometimes it is wild, but this was not
every
wild,
time I
man.
see the food being served, like it actually makes me hungry. So,
Right.
Serge, if you want to know how hungry I am when I watch your show, very hungry.
Damn.
Yeah.
All
Anyways.
right. So you want some cricket tea too or no?
Yeah, and we got to get Durian on the show as well.
I called for delivery about an hour ago.
Yeah, I hope Fred tipped Serge there. But anyway.
Happy Friday.
Run out
Happy
of time.
Thursday is the new Friday.
Yeah, okay. We run out of time. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure to find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Thanks again to producer and co-host Alex Wong, our board producer Derek Bandale, and Scott Lundy for helping us with the YouTube stream. Talk to you tomorrow.